I wasn't quite there yet.
Yep.
Thank you. We were going to go over, which we're now not going to do, by the way. So I'm only telling you this just for those who went, wait a minute, I thought I heard her say that. You did. We were going to talk a little bit about the book, A Whole Life Path. We are not going to do that because I am not going to begin the study group until November 2nd. I'm going to wait till after retreat, which is hopefully, there's a strange kitty in my office walking around. This is pretty interesting. Just rushed out.
It's because you have cat treats in there. They all know it.
Cat treats, but they don't usually come in here to get them. I put them out there. But the kitty's here to get them. Hi. This is going to be a great disappointment for us all, probably the cat and everyone else. So we are going to wait till November 2nd to begin the Whole Life Path. We're going to take the following 8 weeks, which is November and December, to explore it and practice with its invitations. There's at least 50 different teachings and practices in that book. The Noble Eightfold Path is ultimately the fourth noble truth in the Buddhist cosmology. So there is, of course, the reality of dukkha. We've talked about that the last few weeks. The fact that there is suffering, the reality of suffering in this life. We all know this wholeheartedly, whole being. There's causes for that suffering, which have something to do with the quality of our own heart mind. That's the second noble truth. The third noble truth is that once we see the causes to that suffering, we can then unbind from those causes because they are conditioned, they are not random, in fact. And the fourth noble truth, which is what this whole book investigates throughout Gregory Kramer's teaching, is the path to the end of that suffering and to the way to that unbinding. And so the cool thing about that is we're going to investigate for several weeks that eightfold path. It is truly noble in that it asks us to pay attention to everything, to our speech, to our thoughts, to our actions, to our livelihoods, what we do as a way of generating income and making money and consuming, and then investigates even further qualities of mind, qualities of concentration of mind. We're going to do a little practice with that today. I'll talk about why in a moment. It investigates not only concentration, but the available mindfulness that is then the result of being present. And then it goes on to talk about equanimity and compassion, wisdom, the things that are the result of that continued every breath, every moment, every day, forever. Reality. I know that we are all working diligently, passionately, daily towards that aspiration. And I thank you all. Truly, truly for that. It is not a faint undertaking. We are going to review today then, since we're not going to be doing that. I'm going to wait until November 2nd or a little before maybe. I thought we would just simply take a little time with Shantideva today. This is something that came to mind for me a lot in the last several days. I've been up in Santa Barbara with my husband, getting some just time in connection together, time in the kayak in the Santa Barbara Harbor. And as is always the case, unexpectedly, my husband spending some time in ER with a kidney stone. Now remember, please, whenever I mention these things, I'm mentioning them because I understand the truth of them for us all. This is not, just to be sure, a way for me to generate pity or a way for me to get people to go, oh, Diana, not at all. It's a way for us to all remember that this is the truth of our human life. On vacation, wanting to have a great time, life continues. And it includes things we like and things we don't like, and possibilities for growth abound. And I have to say, I'm so really, we are fortunate in that it was an easily resolved situation, which was wonderful. And my husband is well, which is wonderful. And it required a lot of mindfulness for me, really paying attention to what else I thought should be happening. By the way, it did not include an ER visit and a kidney stone. I was not imagining that that was supposed to be in my trip. Of course not, as none of us would. And could I stay present with the distress, with the grip in the belly, with the believed thoughts, noticing them, calling them out? Here's the believed thought that this is the wrong time for this. Here's a believed thought that things keep happening. Yes, they do. Here's the believed thought that even this. And the answer is that's correct. Even this moment, there is the truth of suffering. Even this moment, though, we must continue in this Four Noble Truths. There is conditions for that suffering, which did not include the kidney stone at all, whatever the physicality of that, not really the issue. It included certain qualities of mind, resistance, not wanting. And really the practice became resting in the vulnerability of it. Resting and recognizing, for example, that not wanting this, but wanting something else. And really staying with myself in it all so that I could what? Then be available to the truth, both for myself and then ultimately for my partner. So that he didn't have to go into apologies or shame or feeling judged or like he got it wrong at all, of course, because it wasn't even within his control completely. And so I thought we'd come back to Shantideva to begin. Hopefully you can see that. I'm looking at Victor. Victor, can you nod if you see words on? Thank you. Okay, so we're going to investigate today staying present. We're going to go back to, for a moment, our shamatha, or calm abiding. We're going to rest in the breath again this time, because we're going to be watching then, once that mind is stable in shamatha, sometimes called samadhi, when it gets to be very concentrated awareness. We're not hoping for that in 3 minutes. That happens after 45 or more minutes often in our practice, and can be sprinkled in other places in the meditation. But it's not reasonable to imagine samadhi, this concentrated mind state, happening within 4 or 5 minutes of practice. But shamatha, a calming, a stabilizing, a quality of mind that allows us to then see, feel, sense, and know what else comes when we place the mind then on an object. My example is placing the mind on the reality. Oh, my husband is not well, is going to need to go to ER. What and how do we hold that? Okay, and this is what Shantideva has to say about that as you prepare to sit. May all beings everywhere plagued by suffering of body and mind. Wow, weren't we all just there recently? Obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. Obtain an ocean of happiness and joy right in the middle of being plagued by sufferings of body and mind, by virtue of what? The result of our training, the result of our practice, the result of our mindfulness absolutely serves. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. Really, Shantideva is saying there, weighed down by distraction, weighed down by preferencing, weighed down by bias, weighed down at all from the reality of the present moment. And then he goes on to make some suggestions. May the blind see then with that mind. May the deaf hear with that mind. May those whose bodies are worn and toiled, aging or ill, right, is what it be restored and find repose. That means no matter what the conditions, this mind, if we hold it correctly, can ultimately be the great medicine, the complete healer. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the hopeless find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all the medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May our practice be of benefit, is what Shantideva is saying here. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. I happen to have noticed that. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. Bound by what? The condition of the grasping, clinging mind. May the powerless find power, and the people think of benefiting each other. May this be the benefit and outcome of our practice. For as long as space and sky remain, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to wash away the sorrows of the world. And it's written slightly differently here. I recited the one that I speak every day. Okay. So with that in mind, remembering that the quality of your own mind is the great medicine, is the bountiful drink to the thirsty, is the clothing for the unclothed, is the refuge for those without shelter. Even when you go, I don't know, that seems like a lot and maybe somewhat fictitious, not at all. That is not the truth. The actual truth is your quality of heart mind frees the whole of the world. And when you forget, ask me, and I will remind you, frees the whole of the world, as did in these small instances that we're practicing every day. Go, wait a minute, no matter what's happening, can I abide and hold this with some kind of calm, some kind of equanimity, some kind of open-heartedness, both for myself in this moment of vulnerability, and then the other in their vulnerability and humanness as well? And the answer is yes, we can. Let's see if we can't practice that a bit now together. And so finding your posture, establishing the feet in contact with something stable, the bed, the cushion, the floor. And as we're breathing, we're simply going to breathe one's attention from the feet up the body, beyond the feet, then into the legs. And I just sort of let the mind move up the body. Actually feeling the feet on the floor and then feeling the quality, whatever sensations are present there in the legs. And then feeling into the area of the hips. And resting the attention there. Be watchful of this tendency to want to accomplish anything at all. We're simply paying attention, noticing sensations as sensations, noticing the quality of the sensation with the change in the breath. As we breathe in, we notice a sort of lightening in the area of the hips. As we exhale, we notice a kind of settling, grounding, weighting. And then breathing up from the hips, feeling up the lower, the mid, and the upper back. Finding a posture that releases the back, but allows it to be upright and dignified. Feeling the shoulders and the weight of the shoulders and the arms. Draw down the arms to the hands, just feeling sensation there. Talk about being alive. Feel the aliveness in the hands. These hands, these, just like this. And then waving back up through the arms, up into the neck and top of the head. And then just releasing the head a little bit. It's a real opportunity not to get into some stuck, stiff position that ends up costing you in the practice. And then as we breathe out, we're going to re-enter the body, coming down right into the forehead and the eyes, the cheeks, the jaw, the chin, feeling the nose, the upper lip, the mouth, letting the face be relaxed and neutral. Breathing beyond the face, this very face, into the throat. And then down the body into the collarbone, the lungs, the chest, the heart. Just placing one's attention there for a breath or three. Knowing something about this chest, this heart. Down beyond the chest into the belly, into the abdomen, and then resting the mind somewhere there. Letting that out breath draw you down into the body. And then resting for that very light touch, little light touch right there at the end of the out breath. We're not going to breathe back out in this particular practice. We're going to change this a little. We're going to touch down into that stillness, make contact with that stillness, and then breathe it wide open through the whole of the body. We're not going out with this one. We're going to be practicing calm, abiding shamatha. Staying in contact with the breath. You're going to make the breath and the breath sensations 51 or more % of your attention is going to be taken up by the experience of breathing. not by you directing the breath. We're letting the body breathe itself. And then calling to mind both the purpose of your practice and those for whom you practice. Remember, this is an essential limb of the prayer, it's called. Calling to mind both the aspirations for our practice and those for whom we practice. And we make it particular here. It is also true that it is for all beings everywhere, but we actually begin to get to that by calling to mind those who we know are in need right now. If you can't think of a reason to be practicing, you can always simply practice towards the end of suffering and the wish for happiness and ease. Those are the two boundless abodes of compassion and loving kindness. And simply rest the mind in that wholesome desire. And then we simply let go once we have called the others to mind and placed them in our heart space. They're there, nothing to be concerned about. Now we simply find our way into the experience of the breath, and we're not going to move with the breath. So as the breath is breathing up, we're not lifting the attention and then placing it back down. That's actually a different practice. We're going to just find a spot somewhere in the body. You might have to feel into this a bit, where you can just rest the mind, experiencing the ever expanding and contracting nature of the breath, like watching a wave in the vast ocean. The attention will not be 100% on the breath. This is not possible from this point in the practice. So be watchful of condemnations, criticisms, judgments, and just plain belief thoughts that I'm not getting this right. You are. You're going to notice the breath and then hear the bird song. Notice the breath, feel the foot. Notice the breath. Go, how long is it going to take me to get to work? Back to the breath, back to the sensations, back to moments of non-reactivity, non-thinking. non-doing. When you place your attention on a bullseye, that doesn't mean you don't see the whole target. And so you don't have to tighten up and only see the bullseye. That's not useful or helpful. There's actually a lot of space there, even when we place the attention on a one pointed spot. So don't clamp up, don't tighten up. Hold the spot and allow for the expanding and contracting reality around it. You can invite a little uplift of the heart by knowing that already, whatever else is true, you have already brought greater ease, greater calm, peace, wholeheartedness, mindfulness to the world already. And so we allow the breath with an uplifted heart. We rejoice at this opportunity to practice in community, to be here with others, to rest in the teachings, to find the refuge in your own heart, mind, body. See if we can remain open-hearted even when the mind wanders off into a storyline. I just had a little golf storyline happen here, and I just smiled and invited this mind back to the breath. No contractions, no judgments, just that little knowing smile. It's okay. It's going to happen. The minute we are in recognition, we want to remember that this is a moment of liberation. Seeing the mind in its wandering is mindfulness happening. We don't have to tumble further into the storyline of how bad I am, what a bad meditator I am. The practice is stupid. I can't remember why I'm doing this. I got better things to do. We don't have to let the mind tumble into those very well deepened grooves. We can simply recognize, release, and return. We commit ourselves then once again stable, calm, present. It is likely that the heart rate will begin to drop, the body begins to soften, and the mind becomes clearer. Like a still forest pond, still, steady, reflecting all that passes above. Rest in the surface of that still forest pond. As the mind stabilizes, becomes more steady, our mindfulness begins to grow. And as that begins to happen, we can begin to move the stable mind, shift one's attention without disturbance, without distressing the mind at all. We've made contact with awareness. So then let's practice for a moment before we go to thoughts. Let's see if we can't practice with sounds for a moment. Now, the space we hold, that one pointed space, is just vast open space. That's the one point. Now, and we simply open the door of the ears, ear consciousness, to sounds. And so the ear door will make contact with the sound, sometimes a very quick, abrupt little bird chirp, for example. And then I'd like you to just come back into that one pointed still space. Take a breath, open again. If it's an object that appears to have some momentum or continuation, remember it's never quite true, but I'm hearing traffic, for example, at a distance, and it appears to have a sort of constancy to it. Place the mind there and then stay for 2 or 3 breaths. Just seeing if you can sense the open, still, and silent space all around and within it. It too is not solid, fixed, stable. And then come back to rest in that still space. There will come a point where you can notice the sound within the vast open space without having to move the attention. Remember, we can see one pointed in the whole of the target at the same time, actually. So rather than move the attention to the sound, move it back into open space, you just rest then in open space, letting sounds come and go. And then I'm going to add an additional instruction here before we go to thoughts. As you're resting now in open space, that's your single pointed object, vast open space. You're just resting the mind there, letting sounds appear and change and fade and disappear within it. And I'd like you to note at the end of that, pleasant or unpleasant, maybe liking or not liking. It comes together with the object. There is an immediate perceptual sense about the object. It's based on history, it's based on the present moment, it's based on the current mind state. We're just going to let it be what it is. So I'm hearing somebody move around outside right now. Sounds like shifting objects. And I'm just noticing that sound. I just came back into the body to notice a little tightness there. That happened almost simultaneously. I'm just going to name that not liking. This is not good or bad. It's just to know the quality of the reactivity or responsiveness. Touching the object. Seeing if you can catch what comes immediately with it, which is preferencing. Liking, not liking, wanting, not wanting, pleasant or unpleasant. You can offer a light note there. making contact with sound, catching the immediate preference, and then dropping into the body. And then breathe out, release that. Make sure we're not drawing that into the next breath or the next sound. And if you feel like you're getting caught up in the preferencing, the liking or the not liking, or something in between, just come back into the breath. And then letting go of sounds, let's come back into the breath for a few moments, restabilizing, re-anchoring. The goal here is not to not hear, it's simply to place greater attention here in the breath sensations, letting the rest just come and go. Noticing any differences between the stability of the mind as it rests in the breath as compared to noticing and noting preferences, bias, being hooked or caught in an object. Different quality of body, different quality of ease. And the knowing. And then I'd like you to open once again beyond the breath to thoughts. And I'm going to actually invite a particularly mildly distressing thought. I want you to see if you can open to thoughts to begin. Often the first thoughts are, what thought? I don't know a thought. I can't find a thought. I'm not sure I know what a thought is. And we let go. Those are all thoughts. We're just going to let that proliferation play out for a second, just opening the skylight quality of mind, placing the one object in that open space. That's our target. And then seeing what comes. Now, in the tradition of contemplative practices, anything that happens within that open space is considered a thought, by the way. So you might have just heard a sound like I did. That actually counts as a thought. You could simply just say sound or hearing, noticing pleasant or unpleasant, and then reground. We're going to do the same with thoughts as an actual beginning of a sentence. The sentence and the end doesn't usually happen quite like that. So we don't wait for that. But I'd like you to call up a mildly distressing thought and just repeat that a few times. I'm going to call up the thought, boy, I never get a break, which was a thought that came to mind over the time away. I'm smiling and slightly laughing about that now because I have been able to bring adequate mindfulness to that storyline. That's attached to a whole history of something. And I don't need to analyze it. I'm not evaluating. I just recognize that mildly distressing thought, boy, I never get a break. I hold that thought for a moment, seeing if I can just create space for that without judging, condemning, going, that's stupid. Don't need to do anything else with it, just recollecting it and holding it. And then I'm noticing that next step, that preferencing nature. I don't particularly like the thought for a lot of reasons. I have a lot of judgments about that thought. I'm not fond of self-pity. I tend to be condemning of that. I can feel that coming up. Rather than think about all this, I can just be noticing. And more than anything, notice what comes right after the thought, that immediate preference of pleasant, unpleasant, liking or not liking. And then what comes right after that is a certain quality of reactivity. So we drop back into the body once we noted pleasant or unpleasant, see what's there. This is mindfulness happening. Oh, I can feel a kind of upper belly grip. Just breathing with, creating space for, not having to do anything about. I'm noticing a slight upper back tension now. I'm shifting attention on purpose, just checking in, noticing the minute that contact happened, going right into not liking. I'm going to stay here in the body for a few moments because it's quite active. It's got some things to tell me about that belief thought. Boy, I never get a break. I'm repeating that for myself. And then just dropping into the body, breathing. And with this mindfulness, with this recognition, we're just going to stay with this one thought for now. The very next thing to acknowledge is that this is a moment of difficulty. This is a moment of suffering. And I don't have to try to get rid of it. I don't have to talk myself out of it. I don't have to try to feel some other way. I can know by virtue of the grip in the body that this is difficult. That very belief thought. Remember, we always have the breath here as the anchor when we feel pulled off course. And the body, as I'm bringing attention to the whole of the body as it sits in that reactivity, in that unpleasant not liking, it's kind of neutralizing. I'm not feeling so much tension or tightness. I'm not trying for this, of course, in any way. I'm simply breathing, noticing, and now noticing a certain release. You may or may not notice that. It's not the point. I'm going to invite that thought again. Boy, I never get a break. I'm just noticing it doesn't have quite the same grip or reaction. I'm really noticing that I'm in a much wider mindfulness space. I'm holding the experience in a much wider container. It's not having any of the reaction that it even did at the beginning. And that again may or may not be true. I'm resting in the breath now because I notice there's a lot of neutral happening both in the mind and the body, not too much extra thoughts about that statement. I can feel the release of judgments about it. I'm remembering not only that this is suffering, but that others just like me have had this thought. Why me? Why now? And I'm seeing if I can create a space not only in the mind, not only in the body now, but in my own heart. Can I let this be true and a part of our human experience? Can I breathe with rather than reject, mask, do anything else? Can I just let it be true? I am vulnerable like this. We are all vulnerable. And as I hold this, what naturally happens is I can feel a kind of activation in the heart space. If you don't have a lot of practice with this, you may not notice that. But see if you can't notice a kind of energy shift from the gut into the heart space. It might be very subtle. This is a part of being human. I am vulnerable. Others are vulnerable just like this. And with that recognition, what naturally will happen in its time is that there'll be a natural opening to compassion and self-compassion. I can simply feel for myself. Remembering that first noble truth, there is pain and suffering in this life. I don't have to add anything to the story. I can just breathe with the truth of it. Feeling for myself and or others. And then we can make that offering now that we've made contact with the truth of suffering. The offering can simply be, may I be free from this affliction. May we all be free. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be. May I rejoice at the benefits of this practice. And then we just rest in the offering. We can repeat the prayer for care, the phrases, anything that comes to mind. We can make a visual offering. We can invite that light down in and on us. We can hold ourselves in a loving embrace. Mentally, physically, or both. I notice that I'm naturally now holding my own hand. And I see this very much as an act of care. You can place the hands on the heart. You can give yourself a gentle, real physical hug, visualize it, or otherwise. But soak in it. Expand it beyond the heart in its time. Let it fill and immerse the whole body in that care. And you will just notice that over time, that vibrational sense, that energetic sense, that love, that care, that compassion, that offering just expands itself. You don't have to work at that. You just rest in it, immerse yourself, soak in the good yourself. And over time, once you fill your own mind, body, and heart, let it touch every cell, every bone, every muscle, every pore, down to the marrow, as we say. It then just expands. To include all those just like me who feel this too. This is the path and the practice of the Bodhisattva. We hear the cries of the world to our own cry, and we respond. Washing away the sorrows of the whole world, just like this. And then we just let that good heart mind radiate, that which is awakened. Let its natural radiance just move in all directions. The mindfulness will naturally go with it. May we all be happy. May we all be free from suffering. May we all have ease and well-being. Rejoice in our blessings. And may we rest in this vast open space of loving kindness, compassion, and freed from all affliction. And may this practice today contribute that it be so. May it be so and alive in you this very day. So good. Take a moment to unbind yourself. I know that several of you have work to get to and have already, some of you like Carrie and Adrian and Andy have already gone off. Always know that that's completely right and that I support you doing that, just like I love that you're here for whatever time can be a benefit to you. So any comments, questions? You can chat or come on. We just have a few moments. I really wanted to spend most of the day in that practice. I think I've got some people hung out there. I apologize. Sorry about that. If I didn't get you in sooner, we were in practice. When Carrie's not here, she leaves, I think, to get to work by around 8 o'clock. If you try to come in, you may be stuck because I will not let people in the middle of a practice. It's too disruptive for me personally. So unfortunately, once Carrie leaves, you're stuck out there. I apologize for that. Any offerings, thoughts about this practice today? Cindy, thoughts are a lot more sticky for me to let go than sounds. Yes, I happen to notice that myself. Yes, thoughts are a lot more sticky. We've got a lot of identity. We've got a lot of attachment to those thoughts. We've got a lot of beliefs wrapped around those thoughts, but the practice is the same. That's the good news. Yes, that's why we started with sounds, just so we could get a sense of, oh, and then just letting it be and not staying in the grip or, yes, there are certain things. That thing I recited, for example, Cindy, boy, I never get a break. That's really, really old for me. And it's had a lot of stickies on it over the years. And the beauty is that in the practice, I can now see that so clearly. Um, some believed thoughts that if I got it right, or if I did it a certain way, or if only I were good enough, or something, lots of versions of that, then this wouldn't be happening. And of course, we know that that's kind of crazy. It just isn't true. And we remember then the first noble truth that there is pain and in this life, so that we don't have to blame ourselves, go into self-flagellation or self-pity, the other side of it. And then we don't have to blame others when they too fall in the well of those believed thoughts and act that out, in whatever way they are. Uh, we can bring compassion over time. And I notice every day of practice, I can bring a little bit more, even when I can't always hold on to it. The truth is, I can, like this, that why me? I'm not fond of martyrs, by the way, and there I am. Why me? Why is this happening? And I recognize that my aversion to people who are self-pitying is because I've rejected that very thing in myself over time. And can I now give that up so that I can be most responsive, most loving? And the answer is yes. By seeing it in myself and feeling the vulnerability of it, I can then open to others rather than just suggest they shut up, which is a thing I can get caught in when I let that storyline play out. So thank you for that. Can totally relate to that as well. Yeah, can't we? We do know these thoughts are where the big work is, which is why we practice with other more neutral objects like sound or like sensation, or because once we get up into that realm of thoughts, they are bundled. In fact, they come not only with the thought itself, they come with almost an auto perception about it, a preferencing for it or against it, an almost automatic reaction to it, not only in the body, but in the way we have handled it, the strategies that we've used before to deal with it, called, shut up and just get on with it, which is my old strategy. Rather than acknowledging a moment of pain, confusion, fear, disappointment, vulnerability, an old strategy was, get rid of that and just power on. Not that skillful. Certainly didn't have particularly good results, either for me in acknowledging my own distress and then being able to respond to it with some kind of compassion and skill. And, my commitment is I'm not blowing by those anymore. I'm going to acknowledge vulnerability, that's not the brokenness of us. The brokenness, in fact, if there is such a thing, is in the rejection of what's actually happening. Can we invite ourselves home to vulnerable like this? Whatever the thing or the object happens to be, isn't really the point. The point is the stickiness comes in some way because we've isolated ourselves with that thought as somehow just mine, and forgotten that whether it's Cindy's sticky thoughts or my sticky thoughts or Shivan's sticky thoughts, that we're all having those sticky thoughts, and that can we feel for ourselves and each other. And according to the science now, which I love, it says if you cannot feel for yourself in that stickiness, feel for me. And by virtue of feeling for me and my sticky thought, you'll be able to eventually open the doorway to your sticky thoughts. And if you can't feel for either of us, we'll feel for Cindy. And if you can't feel for Cindy, feel for grandma. And if you can't feel for grandma, feel for your spouse or your children or your animal. Because ultimately it is the same heart mind awakening. And it is always good, no matter which direction you're opening into. So, right, however this happens, and if you can't yet feel for you in that sticky thought because the judgments keep happening and the belief thoughts that it just shouldn't be that way. And if you were a good person or a good meditator or something, then somehow this would be different. Not true. That's not the solution and never will be. But again, I have made 100,000 mistakes with this to get to see it. So I'm going to let you have that same space, making that how many ever. Just catching yourself in the sticky is a part of our mindfulness practice. By the way, noticing that they're sticky, that's mindfulness happening. And then can you feel for yourself there? Like, wow, I really fall in the well of my own sticky thoughts. Can I remember that this is the truth of suffering and that this is some of its cause? And can I then feel for myself or others who get caught in those sticky thoughts too? Any other thoughts before we get ready to go? Yes, sticky thoughts, Cindy is saying, don't just stay thoughts. Yeah, that is completely correct. They don't. They actually almost rather impulsively, rather compulsively lead to something, which is either let me distract with something, let me reject. My habit was rejecting that. That was an old strategy. I've got to be watchful for that. Because like I said, I can be pretty judgmental of people who go into victiming. And I know that's a part of that old habit to go, no, get it together, knock it off. Don't stay in that thought because while you're there, this is going to continue to lead to suffering and I don't want it. And I don't want you to have it either. And so noticing that almost immediately we have strategies for how to deal with these things called pushing it away or sticking it to us, calling I'm just pathetic, I'm failed, I'm a wreck, my life sucks, whatever we're doing. I'm just giving you an example of mine. I went into aversion and just said, no, I'm not going to have that thought. And anybody who has that thought was a further thought is, failed. Not true. By the way, I'm not saying that because it's true. I'm saying that because that was my strategy for how not to feel it, the vulnerability of it. So the sticky thought triggered a childhood emotional event. I wasn't sure what to do, so allowed the waterfall of emotion. And then that subsided and I was back to open space again. You never know what will arise. That's exactly right. If you can know an emotional event as an emotional event, that's still mindfulness happening. Very different. Shivam, you did it, you really held your mindfulness there, which is why that worked out okay. Because rather than collapse into this is the truth, that happened, that was horrible, that made me powerless, helpless, vulnerable, and pathetic, or whatever else we do with it, you just held it in that open space. And then we can see more clearly it's absolutely true in a way that we can then work with it. And what's the work? Well, the work isn't to not feel it. The work is actually to feel for ourselves with some kind of loving kindness, with some kind of compassion and care, and make an offering of that care for that child, for that wounded one, without tripping into the belief thought that that's who I am, that that's my identity. It's simply that that's an arising experience, a moment of pain and my feeling vulnerable or victimized or pained or wounded or lost or abandoned, whatever it is. This is not our whole story in any way. It is that which can hold with loving presence. that which happened. It sounds like that was able to happen for you. I'm so happy. Tanya, when I get overwhelmed, bombarded by work, life, I hit that wall and end up getting injured. Yes, that's usually accurate. We were injuring ourselves the whole time, weren't we? Moment by moment, piling on more, demanding more, hoping like if I could just keep this thing in order, called this unpredictable, groundless human life, then I could be okay. And then of course, what we hurt ourselves. We were hurting ourselves continuously there by just demanding that we continue on. It's not always the right work. And by the way, sometimes is like even with this, I'm going to work with this, but not before acknowledging, being with, holding in loving present and compassionate presence. Not before then. In my open space is that I am enough and to be kind and loving. Yes, we have to remember, don't we? And remind and let the vulnerability be the vulnerability. Just vulnerable like this, human like this. Tired, worn out, thinking I got to keep going just like this. This is all the right understandings. Those are mindfully deep, knowing this. Like there I am believing I've just got to keep it all together. I've got to do it a certain way. I've got to just buck up. I was just talking with somebody yesterday who is going through particular treatment, and I could hear something in her. And I said, you know, you don't really have to like this. You can just not like it. And it might be important to just rest in that. Like, I just don't like this. Doesn't mean the treatments aren't working. It doesn't mean it's not a benefit. It doesn't mean, without being victimized by it, can we just say, with all the right things happening, with all the good treatment, the right doctors, all of that stuff, I don't like this. Yeah, sure. I can't imagine anybody who does, by the way. And so like, what if we just hung out with, I don't have to like this to be grateful. I can be grateful and still not like this. I can feel blessed to have the treatments I have and still not like this. I can be getting better and likely go into healing and still not like this. And we don't have to lie. We can go, and I still don't like this, because honoring that is actually a part of the path to awakening. We don't cut it off or go, I shouldn't feel that because look, I'm getting good treatment, or no, I actually don't like it a lot. And I actually suggested part of her practice be to say that every day. I just don't like this. I don't have to like it. And I'm grateful. And we can hold the whole of it, can't we? Isn't that amazing? They can both be true. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. While it's all falling apart, there is something we can do to hold it all, so that no matter the frayed edges we perceive, the truth is there is a whole, and there is a capacity and a way to hold it all. And I noticed that myself in this really tiny little way with just, wait a minute, we were just getting away for a few days to get some respite. And in the midst of the respite, here's a kidney stone. And do I have to smile through that? Not actually. I can just go, wow, noticing the thoughts that even when we try to get a break, there's no break. I don't actually believe that, by the way. That's a part of just that old storyline. It actually isn't true. And I can know the difference. And still not like that it happened, which is just fine also. And here comes my husband who's well. Hi, Dave. So yeah, with that, may we go off today with this practice. And there's a short course version of this, which is just first beginning with mindfulness. And for me, I have to stop throughout the day. I don't know about you all. I've been doing this a long time. I've got to catch 10 to 20 breaths to center, to ground, to really get present so that I can notice all that fluctuation, all that movement, and can then hold it, abide it, stay steady with it for a moment, and then make whatever offerings, including skillful actions, or more often for me, not actions. That's my tendency, is to recognize, no, I'm really going to go try to just cut it or eliminate it, or not that helpful. Not that helpful. I'd rather you just breathe with it for a little while before you make decisions about what needs to happen. Most of our auto responses are reactions, in fact. So be careful about that. If you can hold it for 20 breaths, my guess is you've got enough mindfulness and stability to be able to trust the idea about what's to come without so much reactivity. But that pause is actually pretty essential. By the way, I know we need to go. My pause was, I'm getting ready to tell my husband he needs to go to ER because he promised if it happened again, he would. And I thought, I don't think I probably need to bring that in here. Hold on, let's just be with him. And he said, could you call me an Uber? I'm going to go to ER, which is not what he's done the other times, making things more difficult for him and others. This is just another example of how, when we don't allow what's actually here, we cannot respond with wisdom and compassion. And he did, and in fact, it went great. They were very skillful in Santa Barbara, by the way. The little cottage hospital in Santa Barbara, shout out to them. They did an amazing job, and it was very manageable and resolved quite easily. And that was because we didn't have to go into, you have to, no, I'm not, no, it's going to be okay. We didn't have to play that out at all. And I'm grateful for the practice and all of you who practice with me, so that we can keep working on that together. Yeah, good to see you. I'm getting ready to sign off. I know we all have places to go today. Good to see you, Robin. We will not, Greg will not be here Thursday. He is traveling up north, visiting family and his little trailer. I can't even imagine how beautiful that would be in the fall. It was so cold yesterday, coming back down to San Diego from Santa Barbara. I couldn't get over it. We are truly in fall now. So enjoy. Just make sure to acknowledge what's different. It's getting a little cooler, although I've heard it's going to be gorgeous today. It's gorgeous every day. Yeah, lots of wind last night. It was quite amazing. Felt like a little hurricane. And please remember Carrie's announcements for the St. Andrews box to contribute. If you cannot contribute food items, you can contribute money. If you can't contribute to St. Andrews, contribute somewhere else. For feeding others, food insecurity is the #1 cause of stress, by the way. Beat sexual abuse. If you can absolutely even imagine that, that is the truth. Food insecurity is the #1 stressor and leads to lifelong significant trauma, even when it's finally resolved. So yes, thank you. Dropping off to Carrie, putting some money. I am getting the newsletter out today. It wouldn't work for me on the train. The train Wi-Fi was not so great, so I couldn't get it out. I will today, and there will be a button on that for not St. Andrews, but for the CRC holiday basket. And there is one already up on the website at encinitasmindfulness.org. And we are setting our goal this year of raising $5,000, and we have $1,500 by anonymous donors that will be matched. So if you put in 50, they're putting in 50. That's a great deal. And we're trying to do this before October 30th, I think, or 31st, because we got to get the check over to them by November 1, I think. I think Cindy might be on here, but hopefully Carrie made that clear. Get it in, I think is probably the biggest point about that in the next week or so. All right, everyone, blessings. May we all be well, healthy, happy, and mindful this day. It will be your greatest contribution to the end of suffering. Thank you so much. Good to see you all. Be well,
Thank you,
everyone.
Diana. Have a beautiful
You're so
day.
welcome. Thank you,
Hugs
Tanya.
to Al.
Thank you so much. He is well. See you guys Saturday. Will be in the garden. So please know this Saturday is in the garden. It's supposed to be a gorgeous day. I'm really looking forward to being out there with all of you. Bring your beach chairs or end up sitting on the floor or one of the benches. I will look forward to seeing you all outdoors then. And thank you for all your contributions, both to St. Andrews and to CRC. Everyone, be well. Good to see you all.
Diana,
Yes,
if I happen to be up north, are we still going to do the Zoom on Saturday?
we are doing Zoom on Saturday as well.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
Yes,
thank
not
you.
only garden. We will always try to do Zoom. It's a little flaky, but we will do our best.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I was like, oh,
Yes, you will not miss it.
thank you. Take
You're
care.
welcome. Be well, everyone.